Now go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm Aislinn Weidele, and I am going to go over kitchen lithography, which is something I sort of taught myself. I do printmaking. Generally, I do etching and other printmaking techniques. I've never done true lithography, and this is really using the principles of lithography in a sort of home kitchen kind of environment. So lithography, of course, is the stones. Traditionally was you draw with something greasy onto a stone, a limestone, and the process is based on a kind of oil hates water sort of chemistry. And so where you paint with the greasy crayon or oil pastel or whatever you're using, litho crayon traditionally, you wipe it down with water and the ink will stick to that greasy mark. And that's what you print. So that's the basis. And that is exactly what we're going to be doing today. But instead of stones, we're going to be using aluminum foil, and Coke is, or any kind of cola. You can use budget cola if you'd like. This is what etches the plate. So I'm just going to go over, I know it's in the chat, but I'll just go over quickly what you need. One very important thing that you need are gloves. Hopefully, like you still have some from the early pandemic days when we were all the time. You need gloves because the oil on your fingers will definitely make marks on your plate. So you really need to have gloves. You need the things in which to draw on your plate. Anything greasy will do, but these are the three things that are typically used. Sharpie, if you want a nice clean line, very controlled, a Sharpie, that will give you a very graphic line, right? It'll be all black. But if you use an oil pastel, you can actually have more of like a charcoal effect. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about lithography is it has, it's the printmaking technique that most kind of is responsive to the artist's hand. It's very direct. So the harder you press, the darker the mark will be. You can get real gradation in tone. And another thing that's just fun, I like to use a lot is soap. And you want to paint right onto your plate using just soap, a damp brush, and you soap it up, and you can draw with that like the way you would a watercolor, and that will give you a different type of mark. You may get some kind of bubbling, from the soap. Those are three very distinct marks that you can make, and they all work pretty well. The other things you'll need is some of the more, like I said, everything you have in your house, but you might have in your house. So you need a brayer because you'll be rolling out your ink. And ink, I'm going to highly recommend, if you want to try this at home, just go ahead and order online from Blick or wherever, a little tube of etching ink. It has really the right consistency, and consistency is going to make a big difference when you're inking your plate. I've tried other things. I have an oil-based, and of course it has to be oil-based, right? Can't use anything like Aqua, soy inks, water. Those are water-based. You really need an etching ink that's oil-based. Yeah, I tried an oil-based linoleum cut block printing ink, did not work. So can be already a process that is prone to, it can be unpredictable. Luckily, it's very quick. Oh, it says my internet is unstable. So if I drop off, I'll rejoin. I apologize in advance. Yeah, where was I? Oh, it can be unstable. So don't don't add an extra instability and just get etching ink. The other thing you will need is something to roll your paper on. So these kind of things. I think that might be it. Oil for cleanup and some kind of paper. I'm using this, kind of generic printmaking paper. You do want to kind of smooth, thick paper, not like a bubbly watercolor paper. And I think that's it. So let me dive right in here. So you're going to you want to keep your foil sort of, you don't want to try and get any wrinkles. The fewer wrinkles, the better, because they will kind of show. And for my actual plate, what I'm wrapping it on, I'm using an old etching plate, but you can use plexi, anything stiff, right? And I've watched a bunch of online tutorials, and people online I've seen on these tutorials swear by one or the other side of the aluminum foil. I have used both sides and I've not had any problems. So I'm going to use it's shiny side up. So for this one, we'll be drawing on the dull side of the aluminum foil.
Aislinn, will cardstock work for the plate?
No, I wouldn't use cardstock because a lot of water is involved, and I think you probably want something that's not going to get, will withstand getting wet.
Thank you.
Yep. So I'm just folding this tightly on the back. And then I'm going to tape it down. Okay. And there's my plate. So it has some wrinkles, and that's just the nature of the beast. So
Aislinn, excuse me, just a minute. People are asking questions about the plate.
Oh.
You're mostly wanting a firm waterproof surface in there?
Yeah. So a lot of the time I just use like a plexi plate.
Okay.
Yeah.
So something like Yupo paper is actually too flimsy.
Yeah, you really want to be able to it should have some weight, some stiffness to it. So
okay,
water, impervious to water and stiff. So plexi was probably your best bet. Okay, so I'm gonna draw with an oil pastel first. I'm gonna do a couple different doing my like generic bird I do all the time. And I'm hoping you'll be able to see, the gradation in the color. And then I'm going to add some Sharpie, just so you'll be able to see the Sharpie. And last, I'm going to, on a different one, I'm going to add another plate that I had already prepared. I'm going to show you how to use the soap. So I like this just because it feels so odd that you can just draw with soap. Of course, you can't see what you're doing because it's clear. You do want an oil-based soap if you want to try the soap technique. I'm just using like a little hotel, like at a hotel. I had tried to use like a liquid soap, that did not work. So you just want to get yourself a little bar of soap, and you just paint it on. And it's nice. I like to use the soap so that I can create it large blocks of black. I mean, it's never pure black. It always has kind of a texture, but it lets me cover more area, right, than the way that you would if you were watercoloring. Okay, I just wanted to add a little marks to that one. But this quick and goofy little drawing I just did, I'm gonna etch. So I'm gonna let the soap one sit so that it dries. If we have time, I'll do that one too, so you can see it. Okay, so I have 2 buckets of water over here, 2 buckets. One has water in it, and the other one is for my Coke bath. Yeah, okay, so here is where I'm at. See my goofy little drawing in oil pastel with a little bit of Sharpie in there. Maybe I should add a little bit more Sharpie just to have more to look at. All right. Okay, so you're gonna pour the Coke over the plate, and it's really quick. You only need about 5 seconds worth of the Coke. And you really want to make sure that you get the whole plate, right? You don't want to, you can't say to yourself, oh, I'm just going to do where the drawing is. You need to get the whole plate. That's probably about 5 seconds. Almost a mini Coke can. I'm just going to use my whole mini Coke can. You want the Coke to be fresh. You can do multiple plates. Like if I do this other one, I can pour this into a cup and reuse this Coke, but you don't want to come back tomorrow and try and reuse more Coke from the same. You're going to have to just bust open a fresh thing of Coke. Okay, so now you can take a paper towel and you want to wet it, and you just kind of stroke off that cola. And then you're going to use vegetable oil, and you want to try and pull up some of the oil pastel. For the Sharpie, it's really not necessary, but when you're using the oil pastel, you want to pull that off because it will kind of mess your line up. You won't have as clean of a mark if the oil pastel is there. So I just use the baby oil. I mean, not baby oil, just plain vegetable oil to kind of pull up some of that oil pastel. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, now that's the etching process. I've already rolled out my ink before, and you don't want it super goopy. Nice and velvety. Okay, so the big thing that you want to remember when you're inking this is you need a sponge, and you want to get it nice and wet. Now, you don't want to pour water on top of it. You want to kind of just stroke it down. You want to make sure it's really wet. If it's not wet, when you roll it, the ink will stick to where you don't want to stick. So the water keeps that oil water lithography thing going. So then when you're nice and wet, and you want to keep that handy so you can keep stroking it with water in between rolls. And you want to just go really lightly over it to start. I'm just really kind of rolling it super light, especially in the beginning, so that it doesn't get goopy everywhere. And just make sure, keep stroking it with the wet sponge. And this is like wet, like if I squeezed it, it would drip out, right? And I'm just building up the ink over the parts of etching. I can show you where I'm at now, a bit of a close up. So see, that came out pretty good. And just, I mean, the drawing is hardly worth talking about, but I'm just talking about the ink on this plate. So the first one you pull is almost never good. You really kind of want to build up the ink, and usually by the second or third print that you pull, that's when it starts to look good. And for me, I mean, some people, I've heard these rumors of 50 prints being pulled from one of these plates. I usually get 5 or 6 before my foil starts getting really funky. And then sometimes I go with that and let that just be kind of the part of the pattern in the background. But just a warning, this is not true, like you're not making a plate that will last forever.
Aislinn, can you move that closer? I mean, you're too far forward. Can you move it back just a little bit so they can see what you're doing? There you go. That's better.
Yep. So I did roll without wiping well before I started rolling. But luckily I caught it in time, and just some wipes pulled that ink back off. So all is not lost. So I'm just going to give it a couple more to really try and get that. And I'm going, in case you notice, I'm going this way and then I'm going this way. All right, let's pull the first print. So in my tub of water, I like to have my paper wet, not super wet. So I just dip it. You can also spray it if you prefer to spray. So I like to just dip it, and I just really quickly, so it's not getting really drenched with water. It's just moistening the paper, and then I roll it, blot it here. Okay. All right, now I'm going to put my plate down. Now I should have marked, if I cared, if this wasn't like I would mark my area to show where the paper should go and have my plate all like, you know what I mean, measured out, so I would be able to put my paper down, but it's fine. And then I'm going to put it down. And obviously, if you move it, you're going to have a smeared print. So I'm just kind of pressing it down to try and stick it on there. You know, whatever you can find that's going to push that on. So a wooden spoon works really good. And then you can also roll it out too. That wine bottle will come in handy for that. Okay. Also, rolling pin. Kind of like to do both.
Is there a right side and wrong side to your print paper?
It depends on your paper, but no, not this paper. I can use either side. All right, so I can see the edges of the plate here. There's an imprint. So I know I'm pressing nice and hard. And like I said, this first print is probably going to be pretty light because the plate kind of builds up ink. It came out pretty good. So see, can you see that? Because so those little like black marks around, that's the Sharpie, but you can see you get like that kind of grayish tone, and that's the oil pastel. And that's it. And you can keep pulling them. For the next one, you don't want to do anything. You just want to wipe it down with water and re-ink it again, just the same way. And if you want, if you're like, I'm done, it's dinner time, but I still want to do more prints, don't try and clean the print. I just cover it, with some paper so it doesn't get dusty, and then just ink it up again. If you try and clean it, it won't. I've just never works. It just seems destroyed after if I tried to like wipe it with oil and then it just somehow the etch is gone. So yeah, that's it.
Right. Can you use, does it matter what grade of oil pastel you use, or can you use an inexpensive one?
Yeah, this is actually, one from, I think this is Michael's brand. So it's actually very cheap. So that didn't seem to matter at all.
Can you get different colors of inks?
Yes, I have red and yellow and blue. You can mix them. And, there's nothing stopping you from doing, especially like if you get the same size plexi, you can do different colors. And that's been part of the fun of it, is learning this and then kind of breaking it down and kind of messing with it. So collaging it and treating them more like monoprints than true lithographs.
What did you roll your ink out on?
I rolled it out on so I'm just using some tape, like, it's literally like, it's freezer paper, but that's not like, that's just what I had around, because I don't like to clean my palette. I'm too lazy. I like to just throw it out. So it's something that's disposable, that's still got a kind of a slick surface. Yeah, and then for cleanup, I just use oil. On the same oil, I just wipe down my brayer. And my mom told me then I should wash it with soap and water, but I never do that. I just wipe it down with oil.
Have you found anything that you can dilute and apply with a brush to make the print?
In terms of the ink, you mean?
Yes. Could you use like an acrylic paint?
Right.
Or like tush, T-U-S-C-H-E?
Right. I've never done that. I mean, in terms of applying the ink, so what I have done is gone back in with other ink on top. If I want to create like I've gone back in with watercolor to create more of a background. But in terms of putting ink onto the plate, you sort of want to keep that. You want to be able to roll it out. I mean, I say that I'm like, well, unless you want to put paint on it, then go ahead. But in terms of applying it, I think that you would need to use a roller, and an etching ink is the best way to do it.
Does anybody else have a question? Well, thank you so much, Aislinn. We really appreciate it. This has been wonderful.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's neat to see stuff like that.
Thank you,
Hey.
Aislinn.
Thank you.
Yay.
Great.
Have a good meeting.
That's cool.
Thank you.